Welcome back to the Super League Championship. I'm Luis Vargas, tagged in recently, and I'm here with Dave Williams.
What's up, Luis? Welcome. Thank you for subbing in on such short notice.
No problem. I mean, this is the Super League, right? We're always on standby.
Yeah, it's funny when Randy approached me about joining this tonight. My plans are to be here watching anyways, so it's not like much changed. He said, "Hey,
yeah,
you're for commentary." I'm like, "That's what I was planning on doing, was watching this." So
yeah, that's the same. I sent Randy an email this afternoon, be like, hey, you probably have all the slots filled up, but I'm going to be around, so just tag me in if you need me. So now
I'm
we
pretty
get to watch
excited.
some matches.
Pretty excited. We get a rematch of the standard Super League final, which I actually did commentary for last season. Which by last season I mean like a month ago or whatever. Gaby against Paul again, although they're on different decks now. Wasn't Gaby on red then, I think, right?
The last Super League finals, she was on Mardu Dragons.
Oh, Mardu Dragons. I feel like she played Goblins at some point.
She did. She played Goblins in the regular season, and then Mardu Dragons in the finals or playoffs.
Made it to
And Paul played that like blue green devotion brew. So
I got to give it to Paul. He does play some brews when he gets a chance in these things. He played quite the brew on the way to 1-2 in the group stage of this tournament. I think he
yeah,
got
he did. But thanks to the group setup, then he actually snuck in at 1-2 thanks to tiebreakers. But here we've got the matchup I think Gaby wanted to play least because she had the bye. She knew she was playing the winner of Eric and Paul, and Paul's red green landfall deck is just so much faster than her. Well, also red green landfall in a different way, in that she just wants lands to keep falling onto the battlefield so she can cast her Ulamogs.
Yeah, I've heard that matchup is pretty bad. I feel like lately I've been playing a lot of standard, like Friday Night Magic and other tournaments at the store, and I cannot stop losing to Eldrazi Green. And I've heard every time I play against him, I'm like, what does this deck lose to? Just because you can't lose. And everybody says, but ever plays against Red or a Tarka Red or Landfall, it's a huge underdog, and that's what keeps it from winning every tournament. So I guess we get to find out if that's true or not, because based on any time I've ever seen this deck, it just casts Ulamogs and nobody can beat a Ulamog.
Yeah, and she does have 4 Jotty offshoot, 3 Hangerback Walker in the main deck, so it's not like she doesn't have defense, but it is going to be tough. I do like the Winds of Qual Sisma in the sideboard. Basically, just fog. She's siding in 2 mana fog, and that's the plan.
Yes, people always complain about the power creep. I mean, there's no power creep there. We've gone backwards. So, you know, fogs are getting worse.
Yeah, I mean this is no constant miss. I'll tell you that much. So.
All right, so let's bring up a deck list for the landfall deck. I want to kind of look at it and maybe see, what differences between it and say a mono red version without the landfall creature, with just goblins and a Tarkus command. What differences are there, and how do they make the matchup?
I actually think the differences here are in Paul's favor in this matchup because instead of Dragonfire and Hordeling Outburst, which are much better against spot removal, like against Jeskai, for example, he's just got Scythe Leopard and Snapping Gnarlid, which, first of all, combo better with Become Immense and Battle Rage, and second of all, just much faster, and Gaby's not playing spot removal, she's just playing Giant Threat, so Paul's definitely on the right deck of Red-Green and Atarka. If you're deciding which one you wanted to play, you'd rather be on the landfall version, not the token version.
But I agree, and your creatures are able to easily get bigger than a Jetty offshoot and kill it. It makes it a lot harder to block. When it's blocking a Goblin token, it's easily gaining you more than one life. Really, blocking.
Right. Once Jetty Offshoot isn't a blocker, then it's just gain 1 to 2 life a turn for enchantment for a green, which is still playable, but not really that impressive. Especially since Paul's deck can just do 18 in one shot. And then if you look at Gaby's deck list, again another red green deck, her deck is also very focused. It's just focused in kind of the opposite direction. She's looking to get up to 7 mana and play a Tarka, get up to 8 mana, play Ugin, get up to 10 mana and play Ulamog. So whether or not she gets to do that is largely determined on whether she's on the play and whether she has just the perfect curve, because Paul's deck's going to pretty consistently kill her before she can do that.
Yeah, I mean, the die roll is obviously important against the red decks, but I think it's particularly important in this matchup where when you're playing the ramp deck, you're going to have a lot of turns where you're not doing anything, like you're not really affecting the board other than adding mana. So having to go second, sometimes you just die before you actually even get to do anything. And now I'm hearing some reports of my mic being bad, so I'm going to try something while we're getting started real quick to switch my mic. If it doesn't improve, I'll come back to this.
Sounds like a plan, or we'll see if it sounds like a plan actually. And the match is getting set up here. I do think that if Gabby knew how aggressive her matchup was going to be, she would have been happy to have more Winds of Qual Sisma in the sideboard, and maybe even some like a cheap removal spell. The problem is she's basically a mono green deck. She's got 12 forests, so it's pretty tough to side in red cards. You really want all your cards to be green.
So I think I figured out what was wrong with my mic, which is kind of funny. Does it sound better now?
Well, now it sounds perfect, and
Yeah,
before it
so I actually
sounded like
have
you were in the middle of the blizzard.
so I have a blue snowball like stand up mic and it was in front of me, but it just happened to be unplugged. So I was talking into no microphone and was using just the microphone that's built into my computer and monitor. So I apologize for that. Glad we fixed it. And I believe the players are ready to go.
Well, sounds like a plan.
Or maybe they're not.
All right, welcome back to the Super League Championships. Luis Scott Vargas here with Dave Williams, and we're watching a matchup that has a lot of Ulamogs in the opening hand. That does not look good. All right. So we've got Gaby Spartz on top, who has crushed Super League so far, 8-0 in overall play between the last two leagues, against Paul Rietzel. And, in what is becoming a theme for tonight, we've got a lot of mulligans. Gaby mulled to 5 and Paul mulled to 6.
Yeah, mulligans are really really hard for you when you're the ramp deck, especially too, because you actually need all your resources because you're trying to cast a 10 casting cost card. So I think they're a lot more detrimental to Gaby than they are to Paul, and the fact that she had to take two of them is really brutal.
It is. She has kept a pretty solid hand, and on the play, too. I mean, getting to Sylvan Scrying and then cast a... She could actually go Sylvan Scrying, then Nissa's Pilgrimage with Spell Mastery, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, I mean, it will sort of unmulligan, but if you look at Paul's draw, by the time she completes all that, she's going to have taken a lot of damage. I mean, even though a Sylvan Scrying is good, it's not really card advantage or ramping. It's just changing the card in your hand to something else. And I don't think any of the lands are really going to help get her to where she's going faster until you get to turn 7, or, excuse me, land number 7 with the Sanctum of Ugin. Or not the Sanctum of Ugin, the Shrine.
The Shrine is the one that keys off the total number of lands. Sanctum is what lets her keep finding large colorless threats. Paul hasn't drawn any fetch lands, though, so if he doesn't hit a fetch land, because next turn he's likely going to go Abbott, try to see what I hit for my land drop. If he doesn't hit a fetch land there, and she drew a Jati Offshoot, so now she can go Offshoot, Sanctum, Sylvan Scrying, and then next turn cast Anissa's Pilgrimage and gain 3 life, which is kind of a big game.
Right, this was actually the perfect draw for the situation and the perfect turn to draw it, because any turn after this, she wouldn't have had the mana to conveniently stick it in, because she'd be casting Pilgrimage, casting Hedron Archive, so it would actually be a lot more difficult, and by the time she got it in, the life you're gaining off the land drops is significantly less. So getting it there was absolutely perfect, other than turn 1.
Jati Offshoot's now gaining her at least 1 life per turn, plus the 2 life this turn off of blocking one of the leopards, which... Yeah, 3 life a turn to 4 life a turn is a pretty big deal. So since Paul played the land first, he's either going to play Snapping Gnarl, or he could play Temur Battle Rage here just to get the offshoot out of the picture.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I guess he played the land first and didn't choose to Battle Rage. I'm not sure. I guess he knew he did not want to Abbot. So since he's not Abboting, it doesn't matter if he plays it first or not. But I think intuitively I would have just played the Abbot to see what I get.
So Gaby deciding whether to play Archive or Pilgrimage. She goes with the Archive because it costs more mana. So that means that she doesn't have a red, so she can't play like an Atarka next turn if she were to draw it. But she's getting pretty close. Oh wow, that it's funny. Becomance is one of the better draws in general, but Paul really needed to hit a fetch land off Abbott, which of course he did. Oh.
Wow, yeah, that fetch land might have been the perfect draw.
Oh yeah. That was the card Paul needed to hit. So Gaby's going to make him crack the fetch land, throwing away the offshoot for 3 life here.
Now the question is, let's see, he only has 1 card, so he's far away from becoming man, so there's no reason to give anything double strike right now when you have the combo in your hand set up for pretty much, if not next turn, the turn after. I mean, he is going to need to hit a fetch land or hit a spell.
Wow, Gaby drew an Atarka. Had she Sylvan Scrying for a red source, she could have played a turn 5 Atarka here. Though given her previous hand, it made sense to go get the colorless lands. It just turns out that she did draw an Atarka and she hit exactly 7 mana.
And the funny part is an Atarka would be absolutely devastating if you look at the toughness of his creatures right now without a fetch land in play. It adds up to conveniently 5.
Gaby wouldn't have been able to kill the Abbot if Dave wanted to run out the Temur Battle Rage. The funny thing is, Atarka might not have actually won this game. Imagine Gaby plays Atarka this turn, and then next turn, Paul just goes Abbot, maybe another creature, then Battle Rage become immense. Like, that could still just win the game. But given that she can't cast Atarka, it's going to be a little trickier.
Yeah, and Pilgrimage only gets basic force. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So she's actually a long way out. I was going to say she's going to have to pop the Hedron Archive and try to find something so that she can play a spell. Haven of the Spirit Dragon will allow that next turn, but it might be too late.
Paul knows that he can just go for lethal here, I assume. Actually, if Paul doesn't draw a land, oh, never mind, he drew a fetch land. That's that's the whole ball game.
Actual perfect card. I was going to say he needs a fetch land and it sets it up
actually,
perfect.
Without a land, I think he was still pretty close. He couldn't actually cast Become Immense, which would have been lethal, but he could cast like a Battle Rage. But this of course, just makes it very easy. So.
Right, he doesn't have to. He can cast the Battle Rage first and doesn't need to give Trample, even though Snapping Gnarlid doesn't have Trample like the Slide Runner, but he doesn't need to give Trample because there's no blocker, so he can cast it first and then exile it for the Delve cost.
Yeah, he can just do millions here. He might as well. He's just running up the score. Takes to Gaby to -19.
-19. That is impressive.
All right, I guess he had enough.
We are moving along quite fast tonight with these red decks.
Yeah, is there a deadline that I'm not aware of? Are we trying to get out of here by 9 p.m.? Like.
Yeah, it's kind of shocking to see this much red. I mean, it's only 2 decks, but usually the Super League players aren't known for playing a lot of red. You see a lot of control decks and kind of combo-ish rally-style decks. So to see 2 red decks and have them slicing the field like butter, it's really kind of making for a quick show tonight. But let's bring up the sideboard and see what Gaby can do to kind of shore up this matchup.
Looks like she's bringing Winds of Qual Sisma, and that's her main plan. Once she runs that, then I think she's going to be at least a little more prepared to deal with the combat checks, and she doesn't need all the Ulamogs, for example.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much more you can really do to shore up the matchup, and you can't really take out too many of your cards, or your deck stops doing its thing.
On the plus side, there's not much Paul can bring in, so he doesn't have a ton of great options.
Yeah, although I don't know what options you would really want other than just to continue doing what you do if you're the red deck. I mean, you just want to go fast and try to kill them quickly. So did it look like Paul? What did Paul bring in?
I think he might have brought in a roast or two because Gaby has Jotty Offshoot and has potentially Whisperwood Elemental. But that's about it.
Yeah, although I don't know if you want to. I don't know if she brought in Whispered Elemental. I don't think I would because it does cost 5 and it is kind of slow. But I mean, adding 2 blockers to the board is a big deal. But when Paul's going to have probably at least 3 creatures and be able to just give the one of his choice Trample and +6/+6, I don't think it's too effective.
So, looks like Gaby's got a decision again. Do you keep the 2-land hand with ramp spells and a fog on the play? I think you do. I don't think you can mulligan this hand, especially with it looks like an Atarka hiding over there as well.
Yeah, this is one of those hands that you have to keep, but you hate. I feel like I always get this hand in limited, like the 2-land. If I get this, it pans out perfectly because you can't really mulligan it, but it doesn't really do what you want quite yet. And, luckily for her, Paul doesn't have a 1-drop, but the hand is pretty slow, and it's going to need a lot of help.
This is basically if you would sum up Sean McLaren's whole match like this, where every decision he had was one of those like 53%ers that you'd know isn't going to turn out well. Like he just had all these like 7-card or 6-card hands that you just have to keep but aren't great. And Gaby's in that position. She did draw a 3rd land, which is nice. So she's going to get to start mapping some wastes here.
Yeah, it would be nice if she had an offshoot that she could grow with the bolster ability on Map the Waste. It's kind of funny how that ability seems pretty much pointless in that deck. But again, I keep losing to this deck when I play Paper Magic, and it's always like offshoot into map, and all of a sudden they have this 2/5 2 turns later after playing it, and I can't get through it.
Or they play turn 2 Hangerback, turn 3 Map the Waste.
Yeah. Pretty incredible.
Paul's got a lot of options here. He's almost assuredly going to play a Monastery Swifter. The question is, do you play Abbot first to try to hit a land? Do you play a Snapping Gnarlid trying to set up the next turn? If Paul's playing Wood of Foothills, he's definitely going to play the Snapping Gnarlid here. He could actually, Well, he could actually play Monastery Swiftspear and then just attack and fire off the Atarka's command. That actually sounds pretty reasonable too.
Yeah, it looks like nope, he's not going to do that. I thought because he played it first, he was, but I think because his opponent is tapped out in F6, the sequencing actually doesn't really matter right there.
But this is what Gabby's deck is designed to do post board. Look, she's going to get to cast Map or Pilgrimage here. It's basically the same thing. And then leave up Fog, and then next turn just play Atarka. So she actually has to play the Pilgrimage here, I think. Otherwise, because now she needs to draw a land to play Atarka.
Yeah, but the thing is, if she does draw that land and if she gets 2 more mana and the Atarka is able to come and do its thing, she's still at a pretty high life, and Paul hasn't found a Battle Rage or Become a Man. She's actually going to get Ugin out. And once Ugin comes out and sweeps up everything, the only real way to combat that is to find haste creatures. But I think it's just Swiftspear in his deck. So she's positioned herself to where if she can draw 2 straight lands, she's in a great position.
She could, because this hit's not that big, she could potentially just take 6 here as well and go to 9. And then if she misses on lands, she can just play the Pilgrimage. It doesn't matter, and then cast the Fog, the Winds, and then next turn cast the Ugin or Atarka. But I think she's actually just going to take the damage here. I could definitely see not. I mean, it's not like Paul's deck is full of burn. Once 9 is a pretty reasonably high life total.
Yeah, I mean, you can still kill 4 of the 5 creatures if you do draw a land here, and then you have an Atarka against a Swiftspear. And if you don't draw a land, you're able to cast your Pilgrimage, leave up 2 mana for your Fog, and then make sure that you can cast your Atarka next turn. Or if you hit a land, you can just play Ugin and sweep the board.
Paul does have double Atarka's command. That's 6 points of burn without even getting any attackers in. So that is potentially dangerous. I could see Paul burning Gaby out here if he draws another Atarka's command.
Yeah, that's the only downside to not playing the Fog right there, even though I think it was correct to not play it.
I definitely agree with not playing the Fog there. I do think she should have Pilgrimaged the turn prior just to guarantee the 7 mana. But I like her play subsequent to that. I think you do want to wait on the Fog. Going to cast Fog this turn because you're taking millions of damage. Paul's not going to run the Atarka's command here. He just doesn't need to. Right now he's got Lethal out, so Gaby's forced to cast the Winds.
Imagine if Atarka's command, instead of saying they can't gain life, just said damage can be prevented.
Yeah, that would be something.
Be quite the card.
I think Paul's looking at that now. So now, because Gaby basically skipped 7 and went straight to 8, my assumption is that she just plays Ugin and then just Ugin's -2 to wipe the board.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I think, a much better play than allow yourself to sort of be trampled and double striked out of the game, where Atarka can kill all the creatures, one Swiftspear would be alive, and there is this kind of a sequence of cards he could have where he could theoretically trample and kill the Atarka, do some damage. So this is a much better play. You get to kill everything on the board, so you're only really worried about Swiftspears, and you've already got 2 of them gone, so there's really only 2 more outs that can instantly do anything to you. Anything else he plays on the board, you can just shoot with your Ugin and play an Atarka.
Paul really just hoping to hit a third Atarka's command, though I could see wanting to hit a Monastery Swiftspear as well.
Yeah, I mean, Swiftspear would do it also, right? Swiftspear would put her low enough to where the Atarka's command next turn could finish her off.
At this point, you might as well lead with the Abbot, though, and see what you end up hitting.
Yeah, and I think he's probably not expecting an Atarka by the way this game was played out. So if he doesn't hit anything, he's probably going to play all his creatures this turn, which is going to be pretty devastating for him.
Even if he, with the Ugin in play, he just knows that his creatures are just going to die regardless. So I guess he's just gonna play Scythe Leopard and not play the Abbot here. It looks like he just try to wait on Abbot to try to hit. Maybe he wants to wait on Abbot so he could, if he hits Swiftspear, he has lethal.
Yeah, and here comes actually Whisperwood Elemental, which I didn't see her bring in. I didn't think it would be that effective because it could just create clunky hands. But in this situation, it's actually pretty great. Although a ham sandwich is pretty good when you have an Ugin out and 9 mana in this deck.
Yeah, I don't think that the Whisperwood is needed for cleanup here. But at this point, so if you're Gaby at this point, you're trying to think of, well, how I'm going to lose this game. I think you want to just clock as much as you can, which means just playing Atarka, messily devouring the Scythe Leopard here, and then just start pointing Ugin at Paul's face, and just that only gives Paul a couple draw steps to accumulate the last Atarka's command.
Yeah, a lot of the times, not that either of these players count, but new players don't realize that even though you've sort of taken control of a game, you do want to end it quickly against a style of deck because they can just burn you out. So doing things that can speed the game, of the pace of the game up, and get it over with as fast as possible are usually in your best interest. In this case, it would be playing an 8/8 dragon and doing 3 to your opponent.
Another thing Gaby has to watch out for is Monastery Swiftspear, so it would behoove her to make sure that she's got an untapped creature to block with. Though Swiftspear plus Become Immense plus Battle Rage would be difficult to beat regardless, but it's possible that she can beat like Swiftspear plus Become Immense.
Which we know he does have. Well, he doesn't have the Swiftspear, but he does have. Oh, he doesn't have the Battle Rage either, so he's actually way off. He's still 2 cards away from being able to do lethal through an Atarka. Now, if the Atarka does attack, he could have lethal, but then again, Whisper will probably come out. And Paul Rietzel is a top deck champion.
Yeah,
wow.
She did not see that coming here. He's going to get to finish her off very quickly.
That was kind of deflating. Middle of my sentence, he just draws his card, and there it is. Lucky Paul increases to his record to 3-2, but somehow moves on to the finals. It's very unfortunate for Gaby because it looked like she was actually about to take over this game, and all she really had to worry about was drawing that the third of 4 Atarka's commands.
All right, well, I'm 2 for 2 on showing up to commentate and being done within 10 minutes. So it's been a tough day's work. I got to tell you.
Which sets up a final. It's Lee, who hasn't lost a game yet, and people forget he beat me in the play-in. He smashed me in the play-in amongst, I think, Gerard also. So Lee is like 6-0 right now. Hasn't lost a match with this deck. I don't think there was any surprise he was going to bring it to the playoffs here, and he says the matchup is not good for him against Paul. We'll see if Paul can get his record to 4-2 and win the championship, or if it'll be Lee, who goes 7-0 overall, if you include the play-in, to dominate the standard in the Super League championships.